All right, boys, welcome back to Fresh Shacks Weekly, episode 54. We're out here in the studio today, and I'm subbing in for Marcus, who's out making jerky for our upcoming trip, and Randy is out hunting right now. So I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I wish I could say it was because I've been fishing and hunting so much, but it's not. All my friends decided to get married. I'm in my 30s, so I'm in that weird age where everybody's getting married, and for some reason they're all deciding to do it in the fall. I thought everybody took Randy's advice to not get married in the fall, but I guess my friends aren't big hunters and don't watch this platform too much. So anyways, first things first, I have an update from the field from Randy. So without further ado,
We came down, scouted for a couple days, and then hunted. We got 5 days to hunt. I'm done. I always said I wanted to shoot a buck with nice prongs, so this is about all you're going to see of him, because something happened that it's the first time in, well, we're starting season 16 right now. First time in 15 point whatever years that I got excited and didn't wait for the camera guy, so I'm gonna get in trouble when I get back, and the crew and the editors and everybody are like, where's the footage? But 2 years ago I was in Nevada filming a whole lot of B-roll, a whole lot of strategy for a course I did for outdoor class called pronghorn hunting. And now me and Matthew, we're out here. He's still got a tag. He's got the rest of today and 2 more days. We're out here trying to prove a few of these ideas, a few of the principles that are in the course out there. And a couple of them are turning out to be pretty true. Today's September 18th, and we talk about pronghorn being predictable, being territorial, being very aggressive. We're in the peak of the rut, and they are doing all of the above. So it's fun to come down here and say, okay, according to what we talked about in the course, this is how it should work. And it worked. Anyhow, a lot of you are in the midst of pronghorn seasons. We got about another 2 or 3 weeks left of the peak rut, and then it's going to transition to the post rut. And then the pronghorn are going to switch over to a food pattern from a breeding pattern. So this time of year, it's so easy. Even if you bump a buck and you've seen where he's been doing his scrapes, you know he's going to be back there. They're just doing their route, checking their scrapes. And if they got does with them, they are not leaving those does. So hopefully you have pronghorn tag. Hopefully you're out doing something fun. Last night we had tenderloins and back straps. That was excellent. And if Matthew shoots one, we'll get some more tenderloins. Either that or we're going to finish off the rest of my back straps before we get out of here. And that's the field report. Take care, folks.
we all know Randy gets jazzed up over pronghorn hunting. That country looks super, super cool. And I got to talk to Jace a little bit about that hunt, and it sounds like it was really fun. Now for some news. So a couple months ago, Randy and Marcus talked about a hunter education and archery programs in school being blocked and them not providing funding for it. Well, recently in a nearly unanimous vote, the Protecting Hunting Heritage and Education Act passed in the House. This act will allow federal funds to be used for courses like hunter education, archery, and culinary arts. The culinary arts part is because when you're cooking and stuff, you're using knives longer than 2.5 inches, which can be considered a deadly weapon. So hooray on that. This will be great for future generations of hunters and anglers. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart as I've started to become a steelhead angler over the past couple of years. There's been repair work on the Winchester Dam near Roseburg, Oregon, which has caused a fish kill of hundreds of thousands of Pacific lamprey. All right, so a little bit of background about this dam. It was constructed on Oregon's fabled North Umpqua River in 1890, and it was the main source of water and electricity for the town of Roseburg until about 1923. The dam's hydropower facilities they're no longer there. They were removed, and the structure is now maintained solely for the recreational benefit of the Winchester Water Control District. This August and then leading into September, it went under preparation to reinforce the dam face with concrete and steel, and filling in spots with injected polyurethane foam. The repair work was permitted to be done between August 7th and August 28th. However, the Winchester Water Control District applied for 2 extensions to complete the work, which were both granted, and the work finally concluded on September 6th this year. When this was all happening, the outdated fish ladder used by steelhead, lamprey, and Oregon Coast coho, which are listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, was closed. So all this in the midst of a fish closure on the North Umpqua that was announced in July due to low numbers of returning steelhead. So Ryan Beckley, the president of the district, and the owner of Terra Firm, which was the company that did the repair work on the dam, said, "My family has had a home here for 3 generations, and with the reservoir behind it, if it was harming fish, the people that lived behind it would be the first ones to pony up." So disputes over this dam are nothing new. In 2020, Water Watch, an environmental nonprofit focusing on protecting rivers in Oregon, offered to remove it at no cost to the district, which would increase fish passage to the 160 miles of North Umpqua tributaries upriver, but the district declined the offer. So ODFW had staff on the site throughout the whole dam repair process, and they will be writing an official report on the dam work. However, there is no clear timeline for that report and when it will be published, but there was evidence of DEQ violations that would carry civil penalties in the case. That's really all I got this week for news. Marcus, Randy, and I are heading to the Yukon tomorrow. We're leaving at 5 a.m. and it's going to be sweet. Caribou hunt. Marcus and Randy both have tags. And for a deeper dive this week, we have Marcus, Kara, and Rocky. They're going to talk about what it's like to hunt moose in Alaska as a non-resident. So thanks for having me here, guys. See ya in a couple weeks.
All right, well, this is like the first one, Fresh Tracks Weekly. We're trying to shoot. We're not in the field, though. We were in the field just a second ago, but we're now in transition. We're still in Alaska, and so we're talking about Alaska hunting, just some general thoughts and ideas about Alaska hunting now that we've all done it.
Yeah, we're veterans.
I guess I didn't hunt this hunt. I didn't
before.
I was filming.
Yeah.
I was working real hard.
Sherping.
Yeah. You were filming and packing.
The fact that I called it work is like not nice. That shouldn't be called work. It was pretty fun. It was just recreation the whole time. But yeah, so for people that don't know, Rocky, I call you Rocky. Travis is your real name. Travis Ram. Kara, my wife, who people may or may not have seen on some previous videos. But yeah, we were hunting moose in Alaska and successfully, which was pretty sweet.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Got one.
Got one.
Got 2?
Got 2. I didn't have a tag. But yeah, so I just thought we could just kind of brainstorm some thoughts about Alaska hunting. One of the big things to me is it's very expensive, even to do it on your own. So like, there's one thing, even like going guided, like you can go, there's all sorts of guided opportunities, and that can get astronomical in a hurry. But even how we did it, which was, I mean, you say on your own, but we took we had a transporter, so we had someone fly us out and land us on a lake. And it still adds up. It's still...
Yeah, but what we did was probably mid-range, right? I'm coming at this from a very novice's perspective, but like this is clearly like about the middle of what you're gonna pay. You know, it's not a guided trip. It's still be considered DIY, but you know, there's a lot of assistance along the way here. You know, with the transporter, like where you could hunt from the road system, like Marcus has done in the past. But like me or Kara really can't. Well, Kara's on one of those. Like yeah. I can't speak to that. You know, but yeah, it's not a cheap endeavor. Either way.
It's a memorable one.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
But you also have to cost weigh how how much you're willing to spend or how much you're going to spend versus your ability to be there. Because obviously your wealth grows as you get older, but also your ability to do a moose hunt in particular and a pack out of a moose hunt is also going to start declining. And so you have to hit that sweet spot where you're willing and able to financially go, but also have the fitness and behind you so that you can actually pack out and get the animal that you're seeking out.
That's super important. And I think you got to like be real with yourself. Like I feel like we're in pretty good shape, and we all try to stay in pretty good shape because it's advantageous for the things we do. But let's be real here. Like, I cannot pack out a moose at some point in my life, and it's probably closer than I would like to admit.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, they're not light.
And it's not good for you. Like
I heard
putting that much weight on your back, it's really not.
Kara should not be packing packs that are close to her body weight. Like she should just not be doing it. Like
I should be doing it so that I can do it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to reach a point when I cannot do it anymore.
Yeah, like Marcus is willing to sacrifice his wife for this. This is basically what he's doing.
Hey, she got to shoot the moose.
I'm willing to train and to like every weekend we're just training for something. And this year it happened to be that we trained for a moose hunt, which was heavier than expected. But I feel like all the weekends and all the like morning workouts that we do definitely like led us to success so that we didn't break and things were relatively easy in the scheme of things. Like it wasn't easy, it's not light, but it was all manageable. But having just come off the couch, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And even being young, if you just hopped off the couch, like you would hurt yourself. You would break something.
Yeah.
Like you'd strain something, you break something, and it's not even just the weight of it all, which the weight is incredible, obviously, but the terrain in which you're walking on is just, it's not flat ground, it's not normal ground that you can put more and more on and just be like, okay, I'll just hit a trail at some point. But it's just, there's not trails, and you're walking over uneven terrain.
Tussocks and hummocks.
The train's not something you can train in the gym for either, though. Like we're lucky enough to live in an area and be able to, you know, backpack every weekend. And like I work in a job there. I do spend a lot of time in some pretty terrible terrain, and like I feel like I'm relatively trained up most of the time for that because of my other interests in life. But yeah, you want to spend some time in the mountains, I think, you know. But I mean, if you live in somewhere you can't do that, like you can't do that. But
Best way to train.
it's helpful.
Carry heavy packs is carrying heavy packs. But yeah, I mean, that being said, like I think Kara and I did a lot more weight training this year, which actually I used to kind of make fun of, but it helps a ton.
I mean, this year
loads,
we decided we were going to go moose hunting.
Yeah.
And so the past 6 months we've been training hard, and we just dialed ourselves in so that we're like able to have more time in the gym. And then also every weekend we're in the mountains. And so like mountains and gym are very different things.
Oh.
But being in the mountains, like we are allowed the opportunity to be able to do that every weekend, and having heavy packs and having uneven terrain and having steep like trails or being off trail, whatever we might be doing. But
yeah.
Especially at your size, like you're not the rule. Kara's not the rule. She's the exception. She's like, you know, they're not like Marcus and Kara aren't big people.
Oh
like,
yeah, we're tiny.
we're small.
Like they need to train to be able to pack those packs. Like I'm not a big person, but like
yeah.
Same goes here. Like you know, like they're not even elk. Like we're always like, yeah, I'm gonna age out elk hunting someday. I'm not gonna be able to climb the mountains, man.
Moose are
heavy. Like
They're
I'm
real big.
stoked for elk season. Like I can't wait to pack out an
Throw
elk.
that thing on.
Yeah, like so. We'll see.
Yeah, but anyway, so this hunting in Alaska in general, like I was talking about the logistics of flying into places, and like you said, I did the road hunt in the past twice unsuccessfully, and one of them was a special permit too, archery hunt, but we didn't even see a legal bull.
That was a
the
bad year.
first legal bull that I've ever seen for sure was this year. which is crazy. So I came up twice, completely unsuccessful, and those hunts were cheaper than this one, but they were also unsuccessful. So I mean,
We also got amazing weather though too.
We had a lot of luck behind us.
Things went well, and I mean, but it's hunting, right? Like sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours. The highest of highs, the lowest of lows. Like we were dealt a good hand this round.
oh, for sure, there was a lot we had going for us. So we had, I mean, a huge thing. We had local knowledge, which helped. Like we had a friend who kind of knew the area and gave us some pointers. That
Hence the cottage.
helps a ton. And yeah, so that was pretty clutch. And then just putting a little more planning, putting a little more effort, putting a little more money into it. But on that same token, one thing that I've started to realize that like is like giving me these weird mixed feelings. It's just like talking to some of the locals, like the types of hunts we're doing. None of the locals do these types of hunts, really, from what I've gathered. Maybe a handful,
The majority.
Not a lot.
but
The majority don't.
they can't afford to fly out like this to go on these cool, like, destination. Like the flights are super expensive, and I think they're I don't want to say artificially inflated. They're inflated because of non-resident demand. So these us non-residents come in, and then like because demand's high, these transporters can raise their prices, and then it just makes it harder for these guys to do it. And so it's like, and granted, so the other thing about Alaska is that's super interesting is that there's crazy regulation differences, and so like the locals, if you're an Alaska resident, you do have a ton more leeway in terms of legality of animals that you can shoot. Like there's a lot of places are any moose. Whereas for non-residents, it's almost always 4 brow tines or 50 inches wide in order to be a legal moose. So right off the get-go, way less moose are on the table for us as non-residents. And then also area restrictions. Residents can only hunt so many, or non-residents can only hunt so many areas. Residents have a lot more area open to them. But still, it's just a weird feeling. But I kind of am on board with like restricting non-resident access. Like I totally understand it. Like coming from a Montana-centric perspective of like, we also have a lot of like barriers to entry to non-residents from cost barriers, and then also areas, availability of permits and everything. And it's just like you're rewarded for living in that state. And ultimately, I mean, it's the public trust that the state is managing the wildlife for the people of that state ultimately. And so it's just like you gotta cater to the people of your state first. And a lot of times the non-residents are a funding mechanism, but ultimately it's to benefit the people and the resource of that state, not just the people, but the resource as well. So it's just like, I don't know, I just have all these mixed feelings and like,
It's
but
not it's not a simple solution, right? Like you can see where they're coming from, right? And clearly is, I get frustrated as an in-state hunter of Montana, like, and I think anybody that's lived there, or grown up there, feels the same way. But I also hunt some other states, like we're in Alaska here today, and like I understand their perspective, but I wouldn't, like, I'm also like looking at it from my selfish perspective, and like reductions in our opportunity are sad, but I also can't get all that mad about them because I see their perspective. So it's a torn subject, and I know people feel very strongly about it, but it's hard for me to like really plant my flag in a side when I think it's an issue dependent thing, particularly as Western hunting gets more and more since COVID. But it's, Western hunting's blowing up. We've seen it in our state, and I know other states are seeing it as well. And there's gonna be some hard solutions by state management agencies, because there's no other, like there's a finite amount of resources on the ground, and there's demand's growing.
Yeah. And selfishly, that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this hunt happen. Like right now, it's just like, don't know if that opportunity is necessarily going to be there next year. I mean, every year there's more and more restrictions, and it is selfish. Like, I'll admit it. Like, I just like want to try to do it before I can't, because it's just like, it is an amazing experience. And like chances are we're never gonna move to Alaska and become carry my captive Alaska wife up here.
That was quickly shot down this weekend in conversation.
Not gonna happen.
I thought it was a great idea. Become Alaska residents. Yeah, Fresh Tracks North office.
Randy?
It's not going away though. Like
No, and like that's the other thing. So non-residents in a lot of states, in Alaska included, it's like huge industry. Like there's all these guides and outfits and transporters, and
not to mention it funds usually the majority or at least half or more of the fish and game budget. Like that's where a lot of these, what's a general moose tag in Alaska? I can't remember.
$800.
800 with
Plus
with fishing and
$160
hunting. Yeah.
for rear
Like I mean that's a
license.
big deal compared to I don't even know what resident prices are, but I know what Montana's are and guess what? You guys non-residents are funding the bill.
Yeah, if I remember, I think as an Alaska resident, it's like $50 for your hunting license, and then everything else is free.
Free, right? Okay.
I might be off a little bit on that, but
Either way,
But it's like
we're subsidizing the fish and game budget to manage, this public resource, or whatever non-residents of whatever state you're hunting. Yeah. So I mean, it's not going away, and it's an important component of at least how these management agencies have worked in the past and contemporarily. But it's not going away, but like opportunities are going to be restricted because there's just so much demand.
Yeah. And then, so here's another thing we got to touch on real quick. And I don't know a ton about it, and so I can't speak to it intelligently. But in Alaska, it's different from any other state in the lower 48 in the fact that they have subsistence hunting, where there are people living on the landscape who literally need to hunt and kill wildlife to survive. Like, that is a legitimate thing, and that is not the case. I mean, in a few rare circumstances in the low 48, maybe you could make an argument, but not really. Like, compared to Alaska, like, there is subsistence hunting. There's totally different regulations. It's under federal regulations versus state regulations, which is most game management happens under. And that is just a whole nother layer to this of like to take resource away from them as non-resident. It's just like it's crazy balancing act, and like you have multiple agencies all working together to try to like manage this and to try to come up with a solution where you have the funding, and then you have food in the field for people, and then you have these caribou herds that are crashing, and like people can't get meat to feed their families. It's wild. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's not something I can speak intelligently.
No, yeah, but I think it's just to mention that that's a whole nother layer to it that a lot of states don't deal with.
It's an important
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle, like very important piece of the puzzle that I don't think we can, have a valid stance on either way and
Never be able to like wrap my head around like as much as we we live on wild game. Like we literally just like all three of us like that's like our protein
choice.
That's what
That's
where I was going with it. It's just like we can't wrap our heads around like not being able to go to like we can always go to the grocery store and get some meat if we needed to.
Yeah. No, it's if we needed it, we could.
It's a totally different distribution and access in Alaska, and that's why every price is inflated.
Oh yeah.
And so the cost of doing a hunt is going to be more expensive because of it, but the cost of food here is just also kind of insane compared to anything in the lower 48.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to distribution and access. And like that's also what's going to help promote the fact that residents can have some more flexibility and some more leeway essentially with what they can hunt and what they can acquire.
And they should.
I fully support it. Like
and they should.
That's like I'm not negating that at all. But then non-residents can come in and try and acquire some things too. And if you can get back like to the local community, then that's also great. Like we're bringing back as much moose as we can, but then the rest is like kind of divvied out within the community.
Yeah, and I think that's a first for all of us.
That
like,
was really interesting. Yeah, walk us through your experience of that, because you were the one. Kara flew out like with the meet before us, and Rocky and I are still in the field.
We came out on 2 different flights.
yeah, somebody's got to be the head coach. And we selected Kara.
We put as much meat into the beaver as we could, and the lightest person got to go on the first flight. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, hunting obviously is something that I do to be able to procure as much wild game as we can so that we can fuel ourselves for the entire year on wild game, so that even though we have full access to grocery stores where we live, like we have full access to meat if we want to buy it, we choose not to. But again, that's by choice.
Right.
And so hunting, especially in Montana, for me and for us, it's always been with the intention of I'm going to harvest this animal with full intentions of consuming the entirety of it.
Right.
Coming to Alaska, we had that same mentality of we're going to come here and we're going to get a moose and we're going to bring it back and we're going to split it if we only get one, and maybe we'll split it with our buddy who lives up here or some other friends that we also know that live nearby, and or when we come back to like town where we live, we can split it with some friends, because very few of us ever have access to moose. And so it's kind of a fun thing to be able to like, hey,
for sure, yeah.
have some moose. Like all of our buddies, they all hunt elk, and so we don't really share elk between each other because we all already have elk. But like, here's Alaskan moose. Super fun. Once we got moose, and then we got 2 moose, suddenly that's a lot of meat. And again, being so remote, the distribution back to the mainland is different, and being able to bring all of it back suddenly became like kind of a lot. And yes, we could have done that, but also a lot of the feelings that we got when we landed was like, hey, are you guys going to be taking all the moose? And our initial like conversations all were like, yeah, we want to bring back all of it, because that's like what we that's what we thrive on. Like that's why we came up here. We didn't come up here for a set of horns. Like we didn't come up here just to like bag a trophy and be like, oh, that was sweet. Like we got a picture, and then like do whatever you want with the horns and do whatever you want with the meat. We came up here to get moose meat, and like, yeah.
I mean, and an experience. Like it was like there's an adventure.
We're recreational hunting.
It's recreational, but it's fun. Like yes, it's an absolute hunt of a lifetime.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
All of the memories, all the experience. Like you're out there and you're just enveloped with bears, and you're just literally in the wild. Like there's no road access back to be like, hey, I want to go and get this piece of food. Like I want to get an ice cream cone. Like you're out there, you're remote. And we have each other, whatever. Like if we get sick of each other, like too bad. You're gonna be sleeping in the tent.
We're gonna make fun of Marcus instead.
Yeah, definitely gonna make fun of Marcus. But with the meat, when we came back, so many people were asking about it that it suddenly became a like kind of recognized that a lot of people also kind of donate some of their meat back, because there's a running list of so many people that are actively wanting moose meat.
When we were cutting it up, 2 people showed up to grab moose, and like it's not like we flew home like what 530 pounds or something. Like we're not messing around. I mean, we're flying home a lot of moose meat.
Yeah, for sure.
We're flying home close to an entire moose.
But like people were jacked, and that was new to me. Like this is very taboo to me.
There's more people on the list than there was moose available, I think, which was like kind of eye-opening, and like how there was like a sense of disappointment when we're like, no, we're gonna keep it, and they're like, oh,
are you sure? Like
it's
gonna
like,
be
they
expensive.
were like, people were like sad, and like I was just like, oh man, like I don't know, it's just like it was a totally different feeling.
It pulled on heartstrings, to be honest, because
for sure.
Generally speaking, we get an elk or a deer or antelope at home, and people are like, oh, cool. Awesome.
It's a different culture.
People aren't like actively being like, oh, can you give me a quarter of it, or like, are you gonna take the whole elk, or what are you gonna do with it? Like we get an elk at home, we get a deer, and like full intentions, like we put it in our freezer and we eat it. And occasionally some people will be like, hey, do you have any elk meat? I'd love to cook some steaks with my family.
Give them like a couple packages.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, that's good. Like I only want 3, whatever. But here there's like are you going to eat it? What are you going to do with it? Are you sure you're taking it all home? And every time we kept saying, yeah, I think we're going to try and do it all, there was that kind of disappointment, and it's like, well, you're not going to like leave any of it here for us. And so I don't know, it was a very, very different experience.
And it really, like, I mean, it's pretty clear. It stems from everything Kara talked about. Like, protein is, not procured from here. Protein is really expensive in Alaska, and everybody knows that, right? And it's about transport getting in here, right? It's not this simple or this complex problem, or like, it's very understandable why this is such an important part of just Native Alaskans and Alaskans out in these smaller towns, their livelihood.
Which I love.
No,
because,
it's phenomenal. As people that do it
people that
on purpose,
want to eat wild game. The fact that so many people wanted, not even needed, but just wanted it. And want and need are very similar, like, concepts, right?
They can be correlated. Yeah.
But so many people are wanting the moose that it's not that they are like, oh, well, I'll take it if I have to, like, but I really want beef or I really want chicken. It's like, we want moose.
Yeah.
For whatever reasoning they might have, that was probably the coolest thing for me, because again, coming from my perspective of like growing into it, of growing up not on game and then transitioning to wanting to consume game by harvesting it. Yeah. Like that part is pretty cool to me, that many people are like wanting to have it.
And for sure. Yeah. Well, I think part of it too, like you guys are just saying, how it's so hard to get things up here.
It's a long ways from anywhere.
Yeah. However you get things up here, and then us like you're gonna spend all that money to then get it home. I mean, I think we spent $1,300-ish
to get two heads and
to ship it home.
Under 600 pounds to get home.
Full disclosure, the heads are the expensive part, right? Like, the more expensive.
Oh, yeah. Mostly your head was very expensive. Turns out the wider they are, the more expensive.
And we should feel really fortunate to be in a situation to be able to even do that, But, yeah, I just feel fortunate to be in a situation to bring back this moose meat, which is a novelty for really... us. Like, unless we draw one of the big three in Montana, which is a hard draw, we're not hunting moose, right? Or sheep or goats or whatever. Like the rest of the lower 48.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on hunting Alaska, Carrie? This was your first time like hunting for yourself, right? Well, no, you got to hunt caribou for about 2.5 days last time. I feel bad about that. We had planned on Carrie getting to hunt caribou longer, but then turns out I was selfish. Well, I guess I didn't do enough research, and I didn't know that the caribou zone and the moose zone just didn't overlap at all.
That's fair.
Kara's hunt got cut extremely short. But so thoughts on this one, even though I guess technically you hunted even less days on this hunt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is now the third time I've been in Alaska. Because we came up for the caribou and moose hunt a few years ago. We came up fishing with your parents, and now we came up on this moose hunt. And every time I feel like I just get blown away with kind of how wild and remote Alaska truly is. And it takes me a little while to finally recognize and have it settle in of we're in Alaska and we're removed so much further away than we typically are. Because oftentimes, again, we're backpacking every weekend and we remove ourselves from populace. We go far into the mountains, and so we're not typically seeing people. And so it feels like a similar situation when you're kind of in Alaska until you finally, it settles in and you realize I am very far away from truly any service, any good that I might need. And I love it. And so I think it's sweet.
Oh, yeah.
You guys like it. But I think some of the coolest parts for me visiting Alaska is the landscape. All the plants are so significantly different. Like the dirt or lack of dirt, the terrain, the animals that you're seeing, it's just so wildly different. And animals, like the wildlife, they act different to people here too than typically what we see, especially in Montana. And I don't know, it's a different experience. And I just go into it knowing like I'm here for soaking up whatever it might be. And I know that I'm going to go home. But again, I might be wet the whole time. I might be surrounded by bears the whole time. Whatever. I'm just here for the experience. I'm going to try and absorb all of it, and then I'm going to lock it away in my memory bank and try and capture as much photos and footage as I can so that I can reflect back on it. But I don't know, it's something that you can't just buy in like your normal life. I don't know.
Oh,
You have to experience it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's totally different than what we can experience in the. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have plenty of wild hunts and adventures in Montana, but
For sure. I mean, every elk hunt that we go on is just, for a typical person, is just going to be blow their mind. This is just next level. But it's, again, like you're saying, high and low. Like,
If we didn't
you
kill a
might not
bull,
see anything because the density of animals is
it's not as high. Productivity's lower here.
it's less because we might be elk hunting, but we'll see a ton of deer, or we'll see a ton of birds, or we'll see other things. Here, it's like kind of all or nothing. Like, you see either a gigantic animal or nothing.
And I mean, I'm going to parrot a lot of the same thing. If I was to parrot the same things Kara's going to say, right? Like, it's wild, it's big, it's remote. It's all the things you know. But yeah, it was just super novel to me. Like, the biggest thing for me was just moose being gigantic prehistoric creatures. Like, yeah, I'm used to Shiras moose, and like, oh my God, are they big?
My
But
favorite
like,
part of the whole hunt is just seeing you walk up to your moose and being like, Rocky's a big dude. You're
not
small.
really. I'm big compared to these two.
Rocky-
But yeah.
We're tiny.
Yeah.
You're a normal
I'm
sized human.
average at
You're an
best,
average
yeah.
human. But you walking up to that moose, you just look small.
I felt small. Like, yeah, and honestly, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, they were just huge animals. Like, just the racks and the body size. It was cool. It was really, really cool. You know, like, at times, a lot of it reminded me of the Mountain West. But then we'd just be in the tundra, and I'd be like, I don't know what any of these plants are, and why is the ground squishy? Like, to be honest, it hasn't really truly set in that well to me because we had such a wham bam hunt. Honestly, is how I prefer to hunt. Like, I just want to go balls to the walls as long as we can. I don't want to eat, sleep, drink, nothing. We just want to go balls to the walls. We tried to do it. Kara made us stop, which was good. Because,
we eat a lot of snacks.
Um,
It's necessary.
yeah, which is good. So like, I feel like I truly kind of missed out on some of like the experience. Like, in my head, like, don't get me wrong, this was absolutely a trip of a lifetime, but like, long story short, I just want to come back. And like, I don't know if like, next time we just need Marcus with a moose tag. I don't need another tag. Like, I want to go caribou hunting real bad and do a spring bear. Like, it's cool. It's really cool. I mean, heck, every state has a lot of cool opportunities like this, though. Like, we're hammering on
it's all
Alaska, but,
different. Like the
yeah.
reason why it's so cool
It's
to
just
us is
novel.
because it's new to us and it's different than what we typically experience. And obviously, the people that live in Alaska already are like, oh, we see that all the time. We see
Yeah.
a big moose every day, and it's the same for us. Like, oh yeah, it's just another elk. What are you looking at? Like, oh, it's just a bear. It's just a deer. It's like, oh, sweet, it's a big mule deer. It's just normal. But then somebody coming and visiting Montana, totally different. And so for us, it's just a totally wild experience.
We're those weird tourists. You
Oh,
know?
we're definitely, we're walking around town in full camo because it's the only clothes we have. Like,
I hate that.
but yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, but that's our view of fun too. Because we visit a city and we're like, let's get out of here. This is not where we belong. Where it's Alaska, it's like, this is friggin' sweet. Don't want to live here. Love visiting.
I could live here. Kelsey's not down.
Love the experience. Want to soak it up and need time for reflection. But I want to come and continue to come back. I don't need to come back every single year, but like I want to like bank up those memories.
I think one thing that like at least really struck me, and this is kind of like excluding hunting a little, but we've hit it on it a bit, but just the remoteness of these smaller towns, like, you know, there's not the amenities, you know, that the industry isn't here. Like, you know, you're not going to have the services you're used to. And that can make hunting logistics fairly challenging. You know, honestly, we're super lucky to have Marcus, who does a lot of this stuff and knows his way around the block. Like, me and Kara just be as little children following him around. Like, what do we do now, Mr. Marcus? But yeah, that's something that you need to take into consideration. If you're going to, like, pull the trigger, like, doing it half-assed without much of a plan is probably going to be, you're going to regret it, I'm assuming.
Oh, and you need to be able to have that mentality that you might be able to plan everything to a T, and you might be one of those organized people that make binders, Kelsey,
Yeah.
whatever. But like, you might be super organized, but plans don't happen the way that you want them to happen.
Gotta be dynamic.
And you've got to accept change, and you've got to accept that you're just gonna be kind of like hanging out and waiting for the next step.
For instant go periods. Like, you're going to sit around and wait until it's time to go and now. And we really experienced that on this trip, especially the go now.
Oh, the funny thing is, I kept telling these guys, and I've said it in the past, is like, whenever I've had like a plane flight to a remote area, like you taking a bush plane, like a float plane or whatever, like I've never flown on the day that I'm scheduled to fly. It's always been later. And on this trip, it was still not the day we were scheduled to fly, but it happened to be a day early.
It was great.
Which was great, but like not typical. But it was still not the day we scheduled to fly. And it's just like, we just happened to be ready. We're like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's roll. Like,
yeah, we'll get in there a day early.
Yeah,
no
it's
problem.
like, it was, which turned out awesome. But yeah, it was kind of funny that way. It's just like things just change, and like, especially with float planes, or just any planes, if you're flying a Cub or a 206 or Beaver or whatever, it's just like they don't have instruments in those planes. So if the weather's bad, you don't fly. And the weather can be bad for 10 days. So it's like, when you have windows and you can go, you go. And so it's just like, and you got to be prepared to be in the field for a long time. And that's like the thing too, is just like where we were at, there's no hiking to the road. There's no, like...
And we're not pack rafting out. Like, that wasn't an option at that
Not
point
in this
either.
lake. Like, we could have, if push came to shove, we could have hiked the pack rafts to a river to float out. But that would have been an adventure. Like, we could have made it done, got it done. But like, if there was
survival.
if there was a serious injury or something, like, we could have got it done, but it would have been a damn adventure.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not an option in most places, you know. River flows the wrong way, you're not going that way, you know.
So that's just a whole nother aspect to it, of just like, it's weird, like you can be so close to civilization when that plane does come. It's like, oh wow, we're back already. But then it's just like, also it's like, oh, weather, not flying for the next 5 days.
Yeah, good example is that it was worth sitting inside the little cottage here instead of a teepee tent.
Oh yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
like we planned on.
Yeah, we flew out. That was another thing. We flew out earlier. We're like, we like didn't want to be picked up yet, but they're like, nope, we're coming for you now. Like, oh, you guys are tagged out? Nope, not. Like, we're getting you right now. Like, okay.
We've had
Fair enough.
4 hours of sleep, and we need
Yeah, we
to
had
pack a lot
no
of things.
sleep. Like,
Yeah, dropped the bowl at 9:30 p.m. Finished at 6 a.m. Slept till, I don't know, 11. And then Kara was flying out at like 2:30.
yeah.
It was a whirlwind.
It was quick. Yeah. So yeah, just not being attached to plans and just go with the flow.
And that's gonna be hard for some people.
It's hard, especially with the amount of logistics that it takes to come up here, because you have to be an organized person to be able to plan all those logistics and put them in place. But once you're here,
Loosey-goosey, baby.
We go and we go. It's like, it could be today, it could be 5 days from now, but we kind of just have to be ready whenever.
But which is really hard is like everything, like circling back to everything we talked about, is like most people paid a lot of money to go on this hunt, right? Like,
oh yeah, that's the thing.
like, and being like
Relaxed.
calm and relaxed about like losing days and stuff, like,
It's hard.
I think you go in, you just have to understand that that is part of the ball game. And if you start getting down on that, like, you're probably going to ruin your experience.
but it's just it's part of the full experience.
Oh, yeah.
You're up here, and this is just the world in which things happen.
You're now in a different culture. Like, you just kind of have to roll with it. We're the tourists, very
Yeah.
much so in this
Oh,
situation.
100%,
Like,
yeah.
so it's just like,
Oh, there's not even cell service. There's
Yeah, we
no
haven't had cell
Wi-Fi.
service.
There's
Kara's dying.
there's
Wait
no
until she gets
Instagram.
back to scroll Instagram. It's gonna
Instagram.
be. She is gonna break the internet.
Prepare for those DMs. They're gonna be flying around. But yeah, I mean, you just come and you just have to kind of sit back and relax, and just.
and then
Wait.
go like 100 miles an hour
But then
when
once
you need
you're
to.
once you're there, you take full advantage of every opportunity that it takes, and so you hunt hard.
But you wouldn't have to. You know, like, I mean, we're coming at it from our perspective, right? Like, I think there's an argument to be made that somebody goes into one of these. Like, if we would have flown into our original lake, we could have also experienced Alaska as a whole, right? We could have fished, which I wanted to fish really bad. I brought a bunch of gear. You know, we could have hunted harder for ptarmigan, you know, shot
Yeah.
some grouse, and
Looked
then
at
hunted moose.
plants.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. Because, like, I mean, we're coming at it from just our perspective. Like, let's be realistic. Like, it's not all balls to the walls, let's kill a moose. Like, some people want to do some other things. And I think you can make it what you want it. Like, we were just pushing it in one direction. But if we would have had more time in camp, we would have been fishing, grouse hunting fools.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if we'd had a couple days. If Marcus wouldn't have made us podcast or something, we would have been, you know, we'd have been hunting or fishing.
No, Alaska's awesome. It's so fun to visit, and I feel very fortunate that we're able to. And that's like, and that, like I said earlier, is selfishly, I want to do as much as possible now for multiple reasons, because I fear that the opportunity is slipping away, and I understand that. Like,
But it's not gone. Totally. It's never going away.
It will never
going
be
away.
completely gone. No,
I feel
but
like
also,
you're
like,
doom and glooming it a
But I
little too
wasn't
much.
saying like just from the perspective of state restrictions, but also you're like you were saying with your body and like
I think
physically.
that's a bigger deal.
And you just never know when things change, like in like you lose your health or you hurt your knee or whatever. Like if any of us had any sort of messed up anything, we could not have packed those
No.
quarters out.
And I think
that's just like it just wouldn't have worked if we had like a bum knee or a bum ankle. Like
or something more serious. Like, you know, like
yeah,
times, you know, it's a life's here's a fleeting affair. And like, as I get a little older, especially in the last 5 years, like I've recognized more that I have, you know, we all really have less time than we're willing to admit. So like when the opportunity, like this opportunity strikes, like these guys literally, it was 3 weeks ago. Like, and I knew there was a possibility I'd go on this, but it's like, hey, you want to go on a moose hunt? It's like, yeah, you know, thanks, Kelsey. I was just like, I just told my wife, I was like, I gotta go. I'm going. I'm sorry. Like, I'll figure it out. You know, and I'm lucky enough to have flexible work enough to do it. You know, I probably shouldn't, but here I am, and it was a great experience. And of course, I'm just to the moon that I got to be able to do it, and super thankful.
yeah, and we also have to thank Randy Newberg for making it all happen, pulling this all together. So
What a guy.
what a guy! All right, well, thanks, guys.
Team high five.
That was a horrible team high five. All right.